Merci à vous tous et à vous toutes d'être toujours là, présents avec nous.
Thank you. Welcome back again from England, from France, from home, from the office. We are in the final part of this final conference for the BCHT project. This morning, we've been talking about everything that's been organized over the past 3 years and the objectives of this project, one of which was developing innovative products to promote the biocultural heritage of these 4 biosphere reserves. We're going to be seeing more about that this afternoon. All 4 biosphere reserves have come up with many ideas. We're going to be going to North Devon to begin with for their charcoal kiln. Before handing over to Andy, who's here with us again, I'd just like to remind you that there is the chat function that you can use to ask any questions to our speakers or make any remarks that you'd like to make. And I will be taking your questions directly. Andy, hello again. So you are in North Devon, where you're coordinator for the North Devon Biosphere Reserve. We've heard that you have been creating charcoal. This started with the idea that there were too many people on the beaches and you wanted to bring people inland. Is that where it all started?
It's true, yes. As you said, with all the presentations we did this morning, showing that overcrowding, particularly on the coastal sites, because everybody comes down to Devon for the beach. That's one of their big reasons for coming down. And if it's bright and sunny, it will get crowded there. But they want to go there for that reason. But it can give people a different thing to do when they don't want to be on the beach, or if the beach is too crowded and they fancy trying something else. But there were other motivations for doing it as well, of course.
So other reasons were perhaps to encourage people to discover the forest, but also woodland management as well.
Yes, I mean, we know from our visitor surveys that at least 80% of people coming down are coming down for environmental reasons, and that was their motivation. So we wanted to, for this whole BCHT project, is try and sort of create another way for people to engage and get sort of deeper involved in those environmental assets we have, not just the beach. And so with woodland, for us, people sort of have an affinity for woodlands. So we want to know how we can sort of make that work better for them, give them a nice sort of woodland experience. But at the same time, we have a problem in North Devon where there's a lot of the woodlands that are small and private, and they're not being managed. So and that's because people either don't know how to manage them or because management isn't profitable. So we want to try and sort of address that by introducing a bit of tourism and a bit of woodland management to make them bring them back into life, because literally they're dying on their feet. That's the woods, not the tourists.
And so this idea emerged, and we're going to be talking about this charcoal kiln and the idea of making it into an activity.
Yes. Obviously, there's a lot of people associate their sort of beach holiday with having a barbecue. So we thought, well, is there a link there with the barbecue side of things? And there's a big demand for charcoal from the woodlands and just generally, because at the moment, I think in the UK, most of the charcoal is imported, or it's made from wood that is imported anyway from, either South Africa or Estonia or Turkey or places like that. So it's not a good thing to keep on importing bits of firewood from all over the world. And particularly when we can produce it here and sort of, as I say, get our woodlands back into life. So that's where the kind of multiple benefits of those links would be coming from is by making charcoal, we've got a link with sort of something that people sort of have, they can eat and do an activity with it, they're used to it. Plus, charcoal is quite a high quality product. What you can do is instead of making firewood by taking down the poor trees, what you can do is make charcoal, which is actually 3 times more valuable.
We're going to be seeing some pictures here. Here you can see the charcoal kiln. Did you make this especially for the experience?
The kiln is something that is made exclusively in Exeter. It's called the Exeter retort. It's not a traditional way of making charcoal. Normally, the way of making charcoal traditionally would be is you stack the wood in a particular way, and either surrounded by earth and turf to sort of make an almost airtight structure, and then you burn it gently from the inside, but reduce the amount of air so it just makes the carbon. Trouble is, when that happens, it releases a lot of methane into the air as well, which is actually a greenhouse gas. So we didn't want to have a method that was doing that. So this charcoal kiln is much cleverer at reusing that methane to fire the pyrolyze or to cook the wood to make the charcoal. So it recycles that gas and uses it to continue with the heating process. So it means we don't have any big greenhouse gas emissions from making the charcoal. It's a piece of kit that we can move around from woodland to woodland, and we can make it easy then to try different areas, make it closer to the tourists or further away, and use that as a kind of visitor management tool, perhaps.
So does that mean that tourists, when they come, they see the kiln working, and then there's activity? I assume there's some explanation there.
Yeah, hopefully more than just see the kiln working. We actually want them to do it. That's nothing like sort of getting in there and getting your hands dirty and doing something to actually sort of make you feel connected to it. So as you saw there on the film there, we had people who were coming along and helping to load up the kiln. And when we did the Edic tour a few months back, was it a few months back? Was it? Yeah, it was. Yes, back in June. We had the participants that filled the kiln. Now filling the kiln when you have a big group of people takes no time at all. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes. And we had the kiln stacked, and then you have to sort of light a fire underneath the kiln to get it going. And that goes on for a couple of hours. So people can then sort of participate in helping to stoke that fire. We have to then monitor the temperature, and you adjust the vents to allow the heat sort of to go through the kiln, etc., or then to shut off the valve, which then recirculates the gas, goes back through. So there's a lot of kind of tweaking and driving to do, but there's also a lot of waiting in between, which we think that we can get people to do other activities around the woodland, whether it be helping to cut some of the wood, or perhaps they could actually sort of have a go woodland carving, or maybe they'd want to go and have a quick walk around and help with the monitoring or the measurement of the wood, or even do a bit of sort of bird watching or biodiversity monitoring. So we can get them involved in citizen science and things around woodland, but at the same time sort of creating this product, which they'll go home with a bag of charcoal to cook on their barbecue when they go home. And the woodland owner has some charcoal he can sell, or she can sell, and then the woodland starts getting back into management. So it's all the benefits we're trying to sort of make are all round.
That's really super, and it's a beautiful kiln. It's magnificent. Is it only for tourists? Is there a kind of folklore aspect, or is it a really effective management tool?
We can talk about and educate about the folklore of those earth kilns, or even the steel rings that some people use, and describe that. But I think there is a deeper education there about why we're using this instead of those traditional methods, because of the greenhouse gas issue. So by reducing the methane that goes off, we say actually we're creating charcoal, but we're creating charcoal in a much more climate-friendly way. And what that means is that when the woodland starts sort of coming back into life again, it sequesters more carbon. So it's actually sort of a big sort of climate change amelioration. So that's where we can talk about climate change and the impact. So we can look at kind of different levels of having that education and interaction with the different sort of tourists as they come in. But we don't want to stand there and lecture them. We want them to have a good time, and that good time can be just sort of participating. And you see the delight when you open the kiln and the charcoal's done, which is the next morning. You have to let it cool down. But yeah, sort of people go, wow, charcoal, wow, look at that, and we pull it out into the bag, and it's you see that their faces light up, and it's all good.
Ouais, et du coup, le barbecue et la côte de bœuf sont meilleurs après.
Yeah, and then they enjoy their
été très
barbecue and their
fréquenté.
steak on the
L'animation a été
barbecue a whole
très
lot more.
fréquentée. Il y a eu beaucoup de touristes qui
Absolutely,
ont répondu
absolutely.
présents.
Has it been successful? Have you had a lot of visitors in using this experience?
It's been early days because what you need to do is to have the wood cut and dried for a year beforehand, and it's been hard to get all that lined up first. So we need to do all the coppicing first. Because we didn't start this until the summer, we don't do that kind of coppicing until the autumn or winter because of the bird nesting. So the last thing we want to be accused of is cutting down trees when there's birds nesting there, and then creating a biodiversity problem that we can be, rightfully accused of. So what we have done is we've used where trees have had to be taken down because of the ash dieback disease or chalara disease, which means that we could have easy access to some of the ash, which you don't have to dry for so long. So the experiments we've done so far have been with one or two audiences just to get a feel for how they think about it. But as of the winter now, we're just entering into that. We have taken on a woodland of our own to then manage. And so we'll be having weekends where we're doing the coppicing. And then we'll wait till the spring or summer before we do the charcoal burning, because you need it to dry. Plus, people only want charcoal during the summer. There's not many people barbecuing during the winter.
Là, avec ce four, on est vraiment sur un exemple de
So
projet
with this
spécifique
kiln, this is a real
C'est
example
vraiment
of a
grâce à ce programme
specific
que vous avez pu mener cette
BCHT
expérience.
project. Is it really thanks to BCHT that you were able to implement this?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's like I say, the beauty of BCHT is we can then sort of work across disciplines and problems, because here we had a big forest and management problem, which was sort of going to impact our biodiversity and landscape long into the future. So it's very much on that kind of technical side, but the route to it was a cultural and tourism economy side. So by using the BCHT funds we had, we could actually sort of get that kiln and say, well, let's try this as a means to do it. And we talked to other charcoal people in the area. We said, would this be upsetting to you if we bought a kiln? They said, there's loads to do. There's a big market out there. There's not going to be any negative impact on them whatsoever. In fact, it would be positive if we actually got all the charcoal making people together to start offer this sort of activity at a larger scale. So rather than just us taking half a dozen or 10 people at a time to do this, with 6 charcoal people in the area, you could do that, you've got 60 people who could then sort of participate in the exercise or whatever. So it's been a good thing, and that's only been enabled through BCHT.
Et ça allait être justement ma dernière question. Est-ce qu'on peut imaginer
And my last question, in the future, could we imagine, several kilns across the forests of North Devon?
Yeah, definitely. Why not? And this company that are making them, those kilns are getting really popular now, and they're making them under license in Australia and America because it's such a good thing to have. And with it being mobile, I think it is the only mobile charcoal kiln that is being made in the world, and we've got a patent on some of the parts of it. So it's we're proud to be supporting a local company that makes these, and they're getting an international reputation. But I would imagine, yes, that we can see more of these kilns around the area. And although it was quite expensive, it was about it's about 22,000 euros to buy, but if you worked it hard, within 40 kiln burnings, it will actually pay for itself because the value of the charcoal is so much. So the economic return is very good.
Oui, vous pouvez vendre le charbon.
Yes, because you can sell the charcoal, of course.
Indeed.
Ouais. C'est génial. Moi, j'adore cette idée de four à charbon, de bois.
That's brilliant. I love this idea. I think I'd love to be a tourist and come and watch the kiln in action. So thank you very much for everything you've contributed and that we've been able to discover. I think you'll stay with us, of course, Andy. And yeah. And once again, reminder about the chat. So now we're going to head over to Brighton to hear about a festival with Lynn.
Effectivement, on retrouve Lynn Trapano pour la
So,
de Brighton,
Lynn,
Coast. Et Lynn, vous allez
from the
nous
Living Coast, you're going to be telling us about a festival that was held a couple of weeks ago, across a whole weekend, a little bit all over the Living Coast. What was the ambition of this festival?
So the idea of the festival was conceived about 2 years ago, and I was at the stage of the BCHT project while I was reaching out to different businesses and individuals and just telling them about the project and what we wanted to achieve. And I'd had a discussion with a local musician called Zach, who he runs sea shanty workshops, and he had the idea of creating a festival which focuses on the cultural heritage of our coastline, so about the maritime heritage, about fishing, which I thought was a brilliant idea because it's Brighton and Hove as a city. It's a very popular tourist destination, and we receive about 11 million visitors a year, and people come for different reasons. And the reason why it's popular now is because of shopping, nightlife. There's lots of cultural hotspots, music venues. So people sometimes forget that the reason, Brighton exists is because of it used to be a fishing village. So the festival's aim was really to reconnect people with that heritage of the coastline.
Et c'est pour ça que vous avez imaginé ce festival comme finalement un patchwork d'activités.
This festival was designed as a kind of patchwork of activities all across the area. Is that right?
Yeah. So we used the funding from Interreg to basically set up the promotional tools for the festival. So what we did was we set up a website, we set up social media management, we printed posters, and we did some other paid for promotion. But the model we used is, instead of us organizing the whole festival, we reached out to different businesses and asked them to put activities on under the theme of the festival. So we approached restaurants, tour guides, museums, anyone who kind of has some sort of link with the cultural heritage of the sea, or their location is on the seafront. Tell them about the festival and then ask them to put on their own activities. So they actually took ownership of that particular activity, and then we promoted it for them as part of the festival. So ultimately, we didn't necessarily organise a huge amount of things. It was other people and collaboration that helped us organise it all.
Mais il y avait, c'est un festival, ça veut dire qu'il y avait une programmation, il y avait une offre qui était
faite. But even so, this was a festival, there was a program.
Recevoir un menu dans un restaurant,
so in a restaurant could, for example, design a menu. You had, so can you give us some examples of everything that was going on?
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, there is an art gallery which is located on Brighton seafront, and they put on 3 different art workshops. So you could make a silver ring, which was all connected to using the inspiration of the sea. They had making hand-printed postcards using different techniques. we organised a mackerel lantern making workshop, and that was set up in the Fishing Museum, which is on the seafront. So they were using willow to create the structure of a lantern, and then you cover it with paper and you put lights inside it. And it was a workshop really aimed at kids to create these amazing lanterns. There was a sustainable sushi making workshop in a local Japanese restaurant. There was talks at the West Pier Trust. The people up in Rottingdean, which is like a little village just on the outskirts of Brighton, they did a talk and they put on a whole puppet show all about smuggling and the history in that particular area. We had a wildlife photographer running workshops on both days, on the Saturday and the Sunday. Local fish restaurants, they put on a set menu and some offered a discount on food that day. The Sea Life Centre, they offered 30% discount on entry. And then also we had the music side of things. So there was, which Zach was kind of in charge of this. So we had 2 bands playing in the fishing, well, the plan was to have them playing on the seafront, just outside the Fishing Museum on the Saturday evening and the Sunday evening. But the weather was so bad that they ended up having to play inside the Fishing Museum, which actually turned out really good because there's a big boat which is in the Fishing Museum, and they actually used that as the stage. So it was all fine in the end. And then different pubs also got involved, and they had shanty bands playing. We had fine dining opportunities. So the Old Ship Hotel, which is the oldest hotel in Brighton, they've got old traditional cellars, and they had a smuggling experience dinner, which they put on. And also Zach ran some shanty workshops in the cellars as well on both days. We had a local pub that brewed a special sea salt ale for the festival, and they served that in the different pubs that were involved. So there was lots of different things going on, which hopefully attracted lots of different types of people. So there was something for families, there was something for maybe older people that were interested in food. So there was lots of different things that people could go on and experience. So some were paid for and some were free, and it was all very clear on the program on the website what you paid for, and then what you could just turn up, or what you had to book in advance and was free.
Ok, et c'est vrai qu'il y a eu beaucoup de monde, donc vous êtes très content de ça, malgré le
Okay,
temps,
and I think it was really busy. You attracted a lot of people, despite the terrible weather.
Est-ce que vous êtes contente de la manière dont
So
vous
you
avez
had
pu,
people coming. Were you pleased with the way you fulfilled the objectives, recreating this link between humans and their heritage, in particular maritime heritage?
Yes, definitely, because the weather was so bad. I mean, it literally couldn't have been worse. It was raining, heavy, it was really windy, and so probably the seafront is the last place that you really want to be. But it actually was really successful. I mean, I spoke to a lot of different businesses putting on activities the week before, so we knew which ones we had to promote further on social media, and nearly all of the providers who were putting on activities, all of them were nearly fully booked the week before the activity took place. And even the free workshops, which you had to sign up for, people still showed up on the actual day. You know, it's very easy when it's a free event that you just, book and then don't show, but everyone showed up. So it was really good, really, really good. And the performances on the Saturday and the Sunday night in the Fishing Museum, everyone was very much enjoying themselves as well. So yeah, it was very successful.
C'est bien. On va, maintenant que vous nous avez bien tout raconté, on va regarder quelques images quand même et puis on en reparle.
Now that you've told us all about it, we're going to look at some pictures of it.
extrait de spectacle que vous avez imaginé et qui
One
s'est tenu
extract
pendant
from
ce
the
festival de
show
Brighton.
that
C'est
you
des bons souvenirs pour vous?
designed. I imagine those are fond memories for you.
Yes, apart from being completely soaking wet while watching that band perform.
Est-ce que là encore, c'est vraiment le BCHT qui a permis de financer ça? C'est-à-dire que
Once again,
avant, vous
is this
n'aviez
really
pas
thanks to the
organisé un tel
BCHT
événement sur un
project?
week-end entier?
Before, had you ever organized a full weekend event like that?
No, not really. And it's a very different model to like a normal festival that you would probably have like a hub, you know, like a marquee or something in one particular location that you can visit lots of different things. What we tried to achieve was lots of different activities going on across the whole of the Living Coast. So off you know, several miles of coastline with lots of different activities going on across the whole area. So for that reason, it was, you know, very different to just a normal festival. But I think it worked incredibly well. And we tried to, you know, another reason with another sort of concept of the whole BCHT project is to try and manage visitors across different seasons, give them reasons to visit at different times of year. So we specifically held it in a weekend in October when it's not necessarily going to be a busy weekend for visitors. So it hopefully gets people through the door of these businesses because they are putting on extra activities. So the whole concept is you know, a kind of a inferior win-win because it helps the businesses, it helps people come into the city, and it kind of spreads the load of visitors across the whole of the shoreline. So but yeah, we wouldn't have done it if it hadn't have been for the funding from the project. So it's been brilliant, really good.
En tout cas, ça doit être encourageant puisque finalement, les acteurs locaux.
It must be really encouraging because the local stakeholders were involved. Despite it being in October, they really got involved. Presumably, you're very satisfied with that.
Yeah, definitely. It was, I think it was I think it was a good time of year to hold it, apart from the weather. But generally, just we wrote a press release and we sent it out and we got a lot of coverage. I mean, we got articles written in The Guardian, in The Observer and Coast Magazine, which are all national publications, which was, you know, we were shocked and really pleased with what happened. And then obviously the local newspapers picked it up as well. And there was a lot of publicity across neighbouring counties as well, not just in Brighton and Hove. So it did actually reach quite a lot of people, even just before the event as well. It did kind of get word out quite a lot. So yeah, no, it was really good.
Et c'était quoi le nom du festival?
What was the name of the festival?
Homeward Bound.
En français. Ok, retour au port. Ok, super. Mille merci, Lynn Trapano depuis Brighton, de nous avoir
Thank
fait
you so
revivre
much,
votre
Lynn,
festival
for
qui a été une
sharing
réussite
this experience of this
malgré les
really
conditions météo.
successful
Bravo pour
festival,
cette initiative très
despite
fédératrice
the weather
qui a
conditions,
mobilisé
and
tout plein d'acteurs locaux et les touristes.
an
Lynn,
experience that
restez
brought
connectés
together
pour
lots of
rester avec
different
nous jusqu'à la fin
stakeholders.
du
So
séminaire.
please
Et
stay
puis, je
with
vous
us
propose
until the
de
end of the
partir en
seminar.
mer, direction les îles
Now
de
we're going
Ouessant, de
off
Fin,
to
de Molène,
sea,
dans la mer
to
d'Iroise.
the islands in the Iroise Sea.
Et on rejoint Chloé Provost. Bonjour Chloé.
And now we've got Chloé with us. Hello Chloé.
Il y a le micro qu'il faut peut-être ouvrir. Chloé, vous êtes chargée de mission valorisation des patrimoines au parc naturel régional d'Armorique.
Chloé, you are a project officer for the Iroise Islands Sea Biosphere Reserve. We're going to be talking about different activities that you've been involved in, and one in particular, the spinning wheel and wool. Can you tell us about this? So the idea was to organize an activity focusing on the traditional spinning wheel and wool in the Iroise Islands.
un peu recyclé de parties
this
d'anciennes
spinning wheel
constructions. Et
was
donc, le
based
rouet
on
était
a
vraiment un
traditional
patrimoine,
model, but
un
using
patrimoine exceptionnel
recycled
sur cette île.
parts.
Et on a décidé
And we
reconstruire un à
decided
partir
to
de tous les
rebuild
prototypes qu'on a trouvés sur
a
l'île.
traditional spinning wheel
Donc, c'est
based
une
on
de
the
nos
prototypes
éco-actrices
that
qui a
we
eu
had.
cette idée-là
So it was one of
de s'intéresser au rouet et à
eco
son histoire.
players who
Et on
decided
est parti sur cette idée de
to
recréer
focus on
le rouet
this
à
idea.
partir des prototypes qu'on avait trouvés.
And so we decided to rebuild this
Et
spinning wheel
du
based
coup,
on
on est en
prototypes.
cours de création. On aurait
And
bien aimé vous
so
présenter le rouet
that's
qui est en
currently
train
in
d'être
progress.
fabriqué, mais on n'a pas pu le présenter
I would
aujourd'hui.
really like to show it
Et
to you
l'idée,
today, but
c'est qu'à partir
unfortunately it's
de
not
cet
finished.
objet, on puisse valoriser l'ensemble
And the
des
idea
patrimoines de l'île en
is
créant
to
des
promote
ateliers sur le rouet
the
ouessant-fin qui permettraient de
island's
parler à la fois
heritage
de
through
l'agriculture
this tool.
sur les îles et des moutons
So to
et
promote
du travail
farming,
que les
sheep
femmes menaient
farming,
avec la laine de mouton.
and then
avec
show
leur
what can be done with the wool. Yeah, Chloe, let's maybe go back to the beginning. So on ancient islands, there are sheep, and that's part of the island's heritage, a very important part. So it was a really important traditional activity, was spinning. Yes, that's right. The women worked in the fields a lot.
Qui n'est plus vraiment présent sur l'île, mais
And
on a un agriculteur qui a
we
des
have
moutons,
a farmer on the island today
l'idée, c'est
who
de
still
valoriser en fait tout
keeps
le
sheep.
travail de la laine qui a toujours été présent sur Ouessant
And
et qui,
wool and spinning
qui a
has
un peu
always been
disparu.
very present,
Maintenant, à travers
was always very
cette
present
activité, on peut
on the
créer
island, and
des
over the
ateliers
years has begun to
pour retrouver
disappear a
un peu
little
ce
bit.
patrimoine
So the idea was to really
s'est enlevé au
reintroduce
fil du
and
temps.
revive this tradition. What was typical about the ancient spinning wheel? Because it was made of bits and bobs.
Les produits qu'ils pouvaient trouver.
Yes, that's right. In fact, it was made with different parts that they had to
Parce qu'il
hand.
n'y avait pas forcément la
They
matière
didn't
pour
necessarily
créer
have all the
formes un peu plus,
materials they
originales.
needed.
Et ils se basaient vraiment sur les produits qu'ils trouvaient
So
sur
they
l'île
really used
pour
what they
créer
had at their
le rouet.
disposal.
Et donc, on n'avait pas de forme très
So
originale ou très particulière. C'est vraiment la sobriété de l'île qui est mise en avant à travers ce
so
rouet.
it kind of it's really representative of the island. So it was kind of early day recycling then. Yes, really using upcycling materials.
Du fait que
Yeah.
sur l'île, c'est important de
And on the island,
cette
it's
manière
very
de faire,
important
parce que
to
finalement, la problématique des
preserve
déchets est toujours présente.
this way of
Et,
life because
c'est aussi un moyen de
to reuse and to upcycle. That's something that's important on the island. When presenting projects like that, it's also interesting to hear about surprises and difficulties as well. And you probably discovered that it's probably not that easy to build a spinning wheel these days.
Fabriquer un rouet très artisanal,
yes, it's really it's
on
actually
est sur
quite
du travail
complicated
vraiment pièce par
to build a craft spinning wheel.
Aussi, un peu ralenti le processus de création
And
du
the
rouet.
process was quite slow in Bcht. It's a very wet environment, and so and it's difficult to make a spinning wheel from wet wood.
Devrait quand même être fini, mais on veut
But we're hoping it's going to be finished soon and that it will really have a functional role in order to be used for activities.
D'ici la fin du projet.
So we hope it'll be finished by the end of the project. Yes, that would be wonderful. So this spinning wheel is to be presented in the Eco Museum on Bcht Island, is that right?
C'est ça, l'idée c'est qu'il soit présent
Yes.
tout le temps dans le
So
musée,
it should be permanently present in the museum for visitors to see, and also to provide information with display panels.
De pouvoir ponctuellement le laisser à des
and
personnes
from time to time, it could be left with islanders who want to organize activities.
Ce seraient des activités qui seraient présentes toute l'année.
Activities that could be ongoing throughout the year
à l'année sur les îles.
across the different islands. And again,
Oui,
is this really a
totalement, il est basé à la fois
BCHT
sur notre réseau
stamped
des caractères
project?
qui a été créé grâce à
Yes,
BCHT
it's really
et
thanks
sur
to BCHT
les
and one of our
financements et
equal players
les méthodologies mises en
using the
place
funding
par ce
through
programme.
BCHT
Alors,
and
il
its
y a ce
methodology.
rouet qui va arriver, qui va être présenté.
So there's
et
this
qui va
spinning
permettre de
wheel
faire
that's
découvrir
going
tout
to
un
be
patrimoine. Et
ready
puis, vous avez
soon,
mené d'autres
and
activités. Il
that
y a
will
notamment un autre prototype qui a
be a way
été
of
imaginé, qui a été
presenting
créé.
the
Et
island's
là, on est sur
heritage.
l'île de
There's
Molène. C'est
another
un jeu de
prototype
piste.
that you've been working on. This time it's
Oui, on
on
a décidé
Molen
de créer un
Island,
jeu de piste. Je
a
sais que
treasure
Mario de
hunt.
Marois a aussi créé son
Yes,
petit jeu.
slightly. I know
Là,
that the
c'est pour,
Mario de Marois also
oui,
has a
là, c'est
similar
pour
sort of
l'île de
game that
Molène
they'll
où
be
il y a très peu
presenting
d'activités
later.
qui sont
On
proposées aux
Molen,
familles
we developed
en
a
saison ou
game
hors saison.
targeted
Du coup, on a
towards
décidé de créer un
families
jeu de piste basé sur
for
vraiment la vie
off-season,
locale. Donc, c'est
focusing
un
on
jeu de
local
piste
life.
qui fait le tour de
So
l'île
it's
et qui va
a
un
sort
peu
of treasure
se
hunt, which
perdre dans le bourg.
takes people all around
Et à
the
travers ce jeu
island
de
and
piste,
in
on
the
passe
village.
sur notre sentier d'interprétation qu'on a créé aussi grâce à
And we
BCHT
also created
et
an
qui va plus
interpretation
parler
trail
du
through
patrimoine naturel et
BCHT.
culturel
So
de
it
l'île.
links in with that.
Donc ce jeu, il est fait pour durer environ
And
2
the
heures.
game
Et
lasts
ça
around
permet
2
de passer aussi
hours.
par tous les commerces de l'île pour valoriser
And
aussi l'économie locale.
we also promote
Et,
the local
et voilà.
businesses through this treasure
Ça a
hunt.
marché, vous l'avez testé déjà?
Has it worked?
Oui,
Have
on
you
l'a
tested
testé
it?
pendant les journées du patrimoine
Yes, we tested it
et avec
during
nos éco-acteurs
some
du
national days
territoire.
known as the
Et ça a
Heritage
plutôt
Days.
bien fonctionné
It
pour
worked
les
fairly well
éco-acteurs qui ont trouvé ça très intéressant.
for
On a quand
our
même
eco players.
deux, trois modifications à faire
We got some
et des
positive
partenariats à monter aussi
feedback.
avec
There's
l'Office
a
du
few
tourisme notamment,
changes
pour pouvoir vraiment
to be
mettre en
made.
valeur ce jeu et qu'il soit disponible pour
And
tous les
now
visiteurs
what's going to be important is
de Molène.
promoting the game
Avec
to
des
our
énigmes.
visitors.
C'est une forme de jeu
So
de
does
piste.
it have like
Alors, c'est un jeu de piste. En fait, il faut
clues,
retrouver les images
enigmas?
sur
Yeah, it's
Molène
got
et
clues, and
il
you
faut
have
retrouver les
to
mots qui ont été dissimulés sur l'image.
find the words that have been
Donc,
hidden
voilà,
around the
pour arriver
island,
à une phrase qui mène
and
à
then
la réponse.
reconstruct a sentence that gives you the answer. So I imagine that the idea is to
Ça, au
attract
final, c'est tout public, c'est aussi
families
pour les
primarily.
habitants, mais c'est vrai que sur Molène, on a
Yes,
très peu de propositions
on
touristiques.
Molen,
C'est une toute petite île et les
we
gens
don't have a
font
lot
très
of
vite le tour.
tourism offers. It's a very
Donc,
small
ça
island.
permet aussi d'attirer le tourisme
So the idea is
sur
to
Molène.
attract tourists to this small island.
Avec vous, Chloé.
And the last activity we're going to be talking about with you, Chloé, it's different completely from a spinning wheel and a treasure hunt, is an exhibition, or several exhibitions, in fact, that you've been organizing,
C'est
a
ça,
photo
on a décidé
exhibition.
de mettre en avant tous les patrimoines présents
Yes,
sur les
we
îles à
decided to
travers des
promote
expositions de
the
photos.
island's
Donc, on en a une sur
heritage
chaque île et on en aura
through
bientôt
photo
une
exhibitions. So we have
itinérante qui
3,
sera
one on each of the
aussi
islands.
proposée aux partenaires sur le continent.
And
Donc, c'est des
we're also going to be
expositions
working
qui
with
vraiment
partners on the
mettent en valeur tous
mainland
les points un peu caractéristiques de la réserve de biosphère
to
et qui mettent
highlight
aussi
the really
les
characteristic
activités
aspects
économiques
of the biosphere,
en avant
as well as
avec
economic activities,
notamment la pêche et
in
le
particular
travail de la laine aussi.
fishing and
Et on a
spinning.
aussi mis en avant sur Saint tout le travail fait autour
And
de la
also on the
restauration
island
des,
of
des
Saint,
murettes avec les
we've
pierres
also
sèches. Et là,
highlighted
tout le travail
the
qui a été
work
fait en partenariat avec
to
différents acteurs
restore
du territoire
the
ont
stone
été mis en
dikes.
photo et exposés sur l'île de Saint pour que tous les visiteurs puissent le voir
So
et se
that
rendre compte que c'est important
visitors
aussi de
can
protéger
realize how important
ce
it is
patrimoine
to
bâti.
protect
Si j'ai bien
this
compris, ces
heritage.
photos au départ, elles sont issues d'un livre, hein, c'est ça?
And these photos initially came
Alors,
from a
il
book, is
y en
that
a
right?
certaines qui sont issues d'un livre, c'est
Some of them were taken
sur
from a
l'île
book
d'Ouessant.
about the
Et
island of Bcht.
ce livre, il est en vente. On a eu quelques soucis pour
It's
le,
a
pour
book
le
that's
valoriser là, avec
available
le Covid, mais
for
il
sale.
est en vente et il permet de donner quelques
And
itinéraires sur Ouessant
it
et
offers some
de guider les
itineraries
touristes
around the
et
island
de
to
valoriser tous les
guide
patrimoines qui
tourists
sont
and
présents,
to
naturels,
promote
mais aussi géologiques.
natural heritage and the
Et ce
geological
livre, il devrait
heritage.
être démultiplié pour se baser sur
So
toute la réserve de biosphère. Là, on a
there's
un projet
a
en ce moment avec le
project
même écrivain
currently
photographe
with
pour
a
rédiger un
photographer
livre qui soit sur l'entièreté de la réserve de biosphère,
to
en
publish a
faisant
book
quelques portraits des
about the
opérateurs ou
biosphere
des acteurs qui agissent sur le territoire,
and working
mais
with
vraiment sur le côté développement
stakeholders in
durable
the
et
area
sur le lien
with a
entre l'homme et la
particular
nature.
focus on sustainable
Je dois
development
trouver
and
ça
the
peut
link
être assez
between humans
formidable
and
de pouvoir
nature.
développer finalement en si peu de
It
temps
must
autant
have
de
been
projets
really,
nouveaux. Ça doit être extrêmement
really
agréable
interesting to be able
d'être aidé,
to
accompagné,
develop
financé
so many
aussi pour développer
projects
des
in
projets à
quite a
destination
short
des touristes
time
comme ça.
frame for
Oui, alors moi je
tourists.
suis arrivée vraiment il y a pas très longtemps
Yes, I
sur
actually
le
arrived
projet
not that
ni les
long
mers d'Iroise.
ago,
Mais c'est vrai que pour l'équipe,
but
même pour le
for the
territoire en
team
lui-même, on a
and for
développé
the
énormément
area,
d'activités pour valoriser le
we've
tourisme
developed
sur les
quite
îles.
a number of
Sur
activities to
Molène, par
promote the
exemple,
islands.
c'est très visible. On a
On
vraiment développé tout
Moulin,
un
for
chantier
example,
d'interprétation
it's
qui
quite
n'était
visible
pas
because we've
présent avant,
developed
et
an
ça permet quand même
interpretation trail
de valoriser et de mettre en avant
to
une
really
culture, la
promote
culture des îles,
the
qui est
island
très riche.
culture.
Donc, il n'y a plus qu'à aller vous voir sur Molène, sur Ouessant,
So
sur l'île de
now all we need to do is come and
toutes ces
see you on one of the
activités, avec, donc, je le
islands and
rappelle, un
discover these
bouet
activities.
traditionnel qui va bientôt arriver avec au musée,
Come and
un
see
jet de
your
piste
spinning wheel
attesté
that
en
should
famille
still be there,
ou tout
should
seul
be
d'ailleurs,
there
et
soon,
des
the
expositions
treasure
photo.
hunt
Merci Chloé d'avoir
and
été
your
avec nous
photograph
et de nous avoir présenté tous ces
exhibition. So
projets
thank you very much
que
for
vous avez
presenting
travaillés dans la réserve de
every
biosphère
really
des îles
inspiring
et
project
Mercuriroise.
in the
On
Iroise
va terminer
Biosphere
cette petite
Reserve.
série de
To round
présentation
off
d'activités
this
touristiques
series
avec
of
ici en plateau
presentations of
Maud et Anaïs
tourism
qui vont nous rejoindre
activities,
dans
we're
quelques
going to be
instants pour
welcoming
parler
Maud
du
and
fameux
Anaïs,
escape game
who are
auquel
going
Chloé
to be
a
talking
gentiment
about
fait
the
allusion. Allez, c'est
escape
tout de suite.
game that was mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Bonjour Maud et Anaïs. Il faut que vous sachiez
Hello
que quand Maud et
again
Anaïs
and
ne sont
again,
pas avec moi en plateau,
Maud.
elles sont en régie
So,
et elles bossent comme des folles avec toute l'équipe
Maud
technique. Finalement, quand
Anaïs
elles viennent ici, là, en plateau,
are
c'est
not
presque plus
on
reposant que d'être à
stage with
côté,
me.
hein, on peut le
They
dire.
are
En tout cas, merci d'être avec nous,
just
Maud Pilofer, donc Anaïs
backstage working
Botsa-Ares.
hard
Vous
before they
travaillez, vous
join
représentez,
us.
vous êtes chargé de
Okay,
mission dans les
so
réserves de
you
biosphère du
both
Marais Audomarois.
represent
Je le redis pour
the
ceux qui nous
Marais
ont rejoints. J'en
Audomarois.
profite aussi pour redire que je trouve que le chat est un petit peu
Don't forget,
silencieux
you
cet
can
après-midi. Vous
post
avez,
your
je sais
questions
pas, vous avez
via
moins de
the
questions à
chat. I
poser, mais
think
n'hésitez pas
you've
à
been all
utiliser le
very
Vous
quiet
êtes là toutes les deux pour nous
lately.
parler donc
So
d'un escape
you're
game
going
que
to
vous avez
talk
développé et déjà
about
testé, on va le
an
voir.
escape
Pourquoi
game that
lancer
you've
un
been
escape game au départ?
designing.
Alors,
Why an
l'escape
escape game? The
c'était en fait, on
well,
voulait
the escape game.
avoir un prototype d'activité sur le
Well,
territoire
the goal
un petit peu
is
plus
to
interactif, plus
devise a
original.
prototype,
Et en fait, le Pays de
something
Sainte-Omer, c'est aussi
innovative,
terre de jeu.
something
On a énormément
unusual.
d'activités
So
tournées autour du jeu.
we have a
Et
lot
voilà,
of
du jeu, de
games.
jeu. Donc, on a plein d'escape games déjà
You know,
liés pour valoriser en fait
the
le
north of
patrimoine
France
local,
is famous for its
notamment des escape
offer
games, mais
of escape
là, c'était
games. There are
vraiment sous
quite a
l'angle,
few
sous le
around.
prisme
So
réserve de biosphère.
what we wanted to do was
Donc c'est
to
un
have
escape game
our own
en
with
extérieur.
our specificities,
Donc,
you know.
on a choisi de le faire à l'extérieur, donc on doit
So
pas
it's an
sortir d'une pièce,
outdoor
on doit pas s'échapper,
escape
mais
game.
s'échapper dehors pour
You don't
découvrir
have to
le
go
territoire
to escape
de
a
la réserve de
room,
biosphère.
but
D'accord.
there's a kind of
Audomarois.
treasure
Et le
hunt.
terrain de jeu, c'est quoi?
Le terrain de jeu,
So
c'est
what's the
Saint-Omer.
C'est
playground?
Saint-Omer. C'est le centre-ville de
The
Saint-Omer.
playground is Saint-Omer,
L'idée, c'était vraiment
the
de
city
rassembler à
center
la fois le
of
patrimoine
Saint-Omer. The
culturel, le
idea,
patrimoine naturel,
the
et en fait
baseline was
faire
to
le lien
combine
entre
the
l'homme et la nature,
natural
qui est
and
très prégnant depuis des siècles sur Saint-Omer,
architectural
pour façonner
heritage,
le territoire du Marais
and
Audomarois.
so
Je
that
découvre
you
les
can
images en même temps que
get
vous
a
parlez, Anaïs,
better
on voit. Donc
understanding
le public,
of
ok,
the
très clairement, c'est les
identity of the
familles
area.
aussi, les jeunes, tout le monde
So
peut y participer,
families,
peut faire cet escape game.
young
C'est
people,
accessible.
C'est ça, c'est à
it's
destination
accessible
des familles.
to
Ok.
everyone.
Alors, il y a un récit, parce que qui dit escape
Okay.
game, il faut quand même qu'il y ait un petit piment, un
So
petit quelque
when
chose. Donc
there's
il faut
an
un récit de
escape
jeu.
game,
Quel est votre
there's
récit?
a story.
C'est
What's your
Anaïs, c'est le
story
film. On
behind the
regarde le
game?
film qu'il montre.
Alors,
Okay,
le
let's watch the
récit,
movie
c'est,
together.
on a
So the
des fouilles
story
archéologiques
is
à
this.
Saint-Omer.
There
C'est
are
vrai, il y en a eu des récentes là.
archaeological digs
Et puis,
in
lors de ces
Saint-Omer
fouilles
that have
archéologiques,
been
on retrouve
actually
des
actually
capuchons
been
de
digs
moines.
around.
Ah, vous les
So
avez
we've
amenés,
had
super. Elles sont
monk
super.
de moines.
hoods.
Ok.
Donc, on
Okay,
invite
this
soit le plus jeune
this is
du groupe
a hood. So we want
arborer le capuchon de
Le
moine.
revêt.
we
Et en
ask
fait, dans ce
someone from the
capuchon,
group
il
to
y avait une
wear
doublure et dans
the
laquelle
hood,
était
and
refermé
there's a double
un
lining
secret.
in the
Un
hood,
secret
with a secret hidden inside it. So what's the secret? That's what they have to discover. So the goal is, of course, to entertain, but also to raise awareness, and you have an educational project behind it. So we want families to take part, families from the territory, but also tourists coming from other regions. We wanted to illustrate the history of the area, and we want to show the links between the history of the city and the marsh. So they're going to discover the local crafts, arts and crafts, farming techniques, and of course we've included the values of the UNESCO project. So we show people that what they are doing has an impact on the wildlife. So they are immersed into the territory. So there are many objectives inside just one game. It must have been quite hard to devise. Yes, indeed. We have a limited number of milestones in the game. Between 2 and 3 hours are needed to play the game till the end. So the Odomarois Marsh is the playground. There's no actual room to escape from, but there is timing to respect. All the rules, the basic rules of a room escape game are the same, but some people come with baby in push chairs, so we have had to adapt to the various profiles of visitors. So there is discovery and game. I'd like to know, what's the secret? Can you show us what's inside this mysterious box? So there's a bag. Okay, can you please put it up? Okay, this is a wooden box with a locker. You're a monk. You have to find out what the secret is. So you need to guess the key, the pin.
Et donc, en fait, quand vous avez ce petit moment où vous découvrez, vous ouvrez le petit coffret, voilà, et dedans, vous avez plusieurs éléments qui vont vous permettre de réaliser chaque énigme,
several
chaque étape
cards that give you hints, hidden clues.
Qui nous demande à quelle tranche d'âge
Andy would like to know which age bracket is targeted here. So it's from 6 to 99 years old, basically. So we want to have games in which even a primary school pupil can participate, even if they are young readers, as long as they are accompanied with adults, they can take part. Someone is posting a message. I love the idea. So the players have a guide. Of course. Yes, there's a guide, indeed. So here is the kind of here is a set of information sheets where you can find explanations on every milestone on the trail. Maybe you've played the game yourselves, but what are the feedbacks from the players? So we've had a youth forum in the Biosphere Reserve, so that was our very first test. So just like just like here for Linz Festival, we had heavy rainfall on our first test game. Sorry. So it was very useful though, because we got valuable feedbacks. We had a few points to adjust, especially the storytelling. Indeed, it's difficult to develop a scenario, but the idea, the various milestones along the path, and the principle was great. Even those who are familiar with Saint-Omer learned things. They had things to learn from the game. So it takes, 2 to 3 hours. It's about 5 to 6 kilometers. It's maybe too long for the people. So the goal, again, is to share experience. Well, you mentioned adjustments that you had to apply in this scenario. So how did you manage the project? Okay, so we drew up specifications. We also had other service providers working with us, a consultant, and Nature Eco, a business that works to help educational projects related to biodiversity. So there was quite a lot of rain, as you just said. That would bring you luck, hopefully. Okay, so you needed a technical coaching, educational support as well. How expensive is that? Well, it is expensive indeed. It requires resources. If you want to achieve something good, you need about 10,000 euros. So it includes actually making the tools. So do you want to work with a school, for example, to think up the little characters that are included in the game? Are you going to work with local inhabitants to know more about their favorite places? So we have had such workshops to work together in the development phase, so it's going to take time. The next step was about writing up the script, so to make sure that everybody could have a role in the game, from children to adults. Then the material had to be made. There was some specific there were some specific skills indeed to well, we had bags to make. You also have a lot of working hours. Well, just one question. How many teams can play at the same time? So we've got 10 bags, so 10 teams can play at the same time together, you know, at the same time, without bumping into one another.
a fait partir à 5 ou 10 minutes
So there was a little time lapse between the departure of each team. So do the people go back home with their bags? Oh no, they don't.
Comme souvenir, en fait, qu'est-ce qu'on pouvait créer
No.
comme souvenir avec eux?
We considered what kind of token they could take back home. So the tourism office. So the starting point is the tourism office, and then they walk to the windmill in the marsh. So the youngest participant is wearing the hood, and he or she can have a free pick made for them, and they can take the pick home. Maud, can you please put the hood on? Oh no, thanks. So it's a prototype. You had to think it up from scratch. So it must be very exciting. Exhilarating, sorry, to work on such projects. Yeah, sure. We had to identify the various stations, the path, and I myself discovered more about Saint-Omer. You're not supposed to take part in the game, but when you see the participants mulling over hints, trying to solve puzzles, manipulating objects, it's very exciting. So you had to work on the technical part. Do you think you can share this experience with other biosphere reserves? Yes, of course. Yeah.
Ça faisait partie de notre demande auprès du prestataire.
It was part of our request to the service provider. We wanted the prototype to be transferable to different places, so we can keep the timing and the pattern of the puzzles, and you just have to use this as a template for other games. I think this is going to be of interest. Okay, so this is a typical example. So you just have to change your own. Yes, to have your own species on the flashcards. Here we have a code, a secret code. Here you're going to find out about crafts and jobs. So it is easily transferable to other contexts. So this is just great because thanks to BCHT, you have been able to put a lot of energy, money, and effort into projects that can be reused for less, for cheaper by other stakeholders or biosphere reserves. Here you can say a little vial that you can use for anything. You can, for example, put essential oils into the vials and use them for fragrance testing or anything. If I remember well, there was lavender in one of Brighton's presentation movies, so it could be used for lavender extract, couldn't it? So the idea is to put it on offer, put the game on offer. Well, first, we're going to work a bit on the script, and then the tourism office will have leaflets, and so it will be made available for the next season, less rainy, hopefully. But some people are in their feedback or commentaries asked for a waterproof jacket
C'est vrai que si on veut faire découvrir un
They
territoire, on
wanted
peut pas
one to
maîtriser la
be
météo, c'est
put
comme
in
ça.
the bag.
Donc,
But well, what can
faut
be
faire
done
avec,
about
hein.
the
C'est pas
weather?
contre
You
la
have to
météo.
do with
Merci à vous
it
deux
anyway.
de nous avoir
Thank you
présenté cet
very
escape game
much
qui donne envie.
indeed,
Et vu le
Anaïs
chat, je
and
pense
Maud.
que d'autres
This
réserves
is
vont avoir envie de se
something we
lancer
all
dans une
would
telle
like to
aventure.
experiment.
Alors, je vais vous faire travailler un
Okay,
petit peu, vous tous et vous
now
toutes qui nous
you'll
regardez et qui êtes
all have to
connectés et
work a
vraiment concentrés
bit
sur le séminaire. Parce qu'avant de partir en pause, on va faire une pause, hein, mais juste
before
avant,
we
j'aimerais que vous
take a
participiez
break.
à le
I'd
petit
like you
exercice de
to
nuage de mots. Ça va
take
se passer
part
dans le
into
chat.
this
On va vous demander
cloud of word
de donner 3 mots.
activity.
Voilà, ça s'affiche.
So
3
you'll
mots
have
qui,
to
pour vous, symbolisent
pick 3
vraiment
words
ce projet
that
BCHT.
illustrate,
Donc
that
vous
best
lâchez, faites parler
illustrate
votre cœur. On ne demande pas
BCHT
que des mots techniques. On veut vraiment
for you, in
voir
your
de quelle
opinion.
manière vous avez
Which
vécu
three or what
ce
3
programme
words
BCHT.
best
Vous faites
illustrate
ça
your
maintenant.
feelings
On part
about
en
a
pause,
project?
si vous voulez bien, puis on se retrouve
Up
dans
to
un petit
you.
quart d'heure,
Now
à moins le
we'll be
quart, comme
meeting
on dit, et
again
puis pour la
in a
suite
quarter,
du programme. Allez,
in a
merci de
quarter of an
participer
hour.
au nuage de mots et puis à
Thanks
tout
a
de
lot.
suite. Nous sommes vraiment dans la séquence finale du séminaire final.
We are now in the
Merci
final stages of our final conference. Thank you for being with us. You took part in our game. You've entered the 3 words. We're going to find out what it looks like now. Here we are. The words that highlighted the most. We've got sharing, we've got tradition, we've got nature. We also have beer in there. We've got biosphere.
C'était la base de notre travail.
For me, biosphere was really the basis of our work, our values, our shared values. Cooperation, because we needed to listen, understand the reality for each of the reserves, to progress together in our project. And then beer, it may seem funny, but that's what brings us together on the English side, and both in Brittany and the north of France. I think it's something that we have in common. It reminds us of the friendly times that we had before COVID, sharing a beer together. That's wonderful, and it really makes even things a bit more human. My 3 words, it doesn't necessarily come up straight away, but link with other territories, links with our eco-players. So something that is fundamental to me in all our actions. I had nature because I think it's universal. It can be translated into all languages, and it's really the foundation of this project, which is based on natural heritage. So that was an important one for me. And then sharing. Possibly slightly repetitive with the work. Link. But no, I think sharing was really important in the idea of giving and taking. And when I saw the word beer, I just thought that's wonderful, because it's a really strong word that really brings people together on various levels. So I like Anaïs' suggestion there. Yeah, she wasn't the only one apparently. But the words that come out really, sharing, tradition and nature. What are we going to do with these words? Well, we're going to call up Paul Benjamin, who's in Saint-Omer. Hello again. We spoke this morning. What is going to happen, and what is the link with our cloud of words? Hello again. Well, what's going to happen is that I given these words to Jessie, who works with me.
pour qu'on puisse les graver
and they're
sur
going to
des
be
verres. Alors,
engraved
ces
on
verres, c'est les verres
glass.
de la cristallerie d'Arc, qui est donc une
This
entreprise
glass comes from a crystal
une des plus importantes de
works
la région.
in the region,
La cristallerie d'Arc est le plus grand site verrier
in a place called Arc,
du monde. Donc voilà,
and it's
et je vais vous
the
montrer rapidement. Hop,
leading
ça tourne.
site for this in the world.
Parce que Benjamin, il est reporter pour nous aujourd'hui avec
Benjamin is acting as a reporter for us today with his smartphone, coming live from us.
Donc,
live for us
vous
here.
avez là le verre
So
qui a
here
été
you can
sélectionné
see
avec son
the
magnifique
chosen
carton derrière.
glass.
Et maintenant que ça a été fait, je vais rejoindre Jessie dans le sol
And
d'à côté.
now
Donc,
I'm
on
going
fera
to
des réglages
go
sur
and
l'ordinateur.
join
Et dès
Jessie.
qu'il sera prêt,
And
je
as soon
lancerai la
as
gravure et vous
it's
pourrez la voir en direct.
ready, I'll show you the engraving. And what are we going to do
Alors,
with
qu'est-ce
these
qu'on va en
engraved
faire?
glasses?
Ces verres-là, on en a commandé 48. Et il y en a 12
We've
qui
ordered
vont être transmis
48,
à chaque partenaire, à chaque réserve
and
de
12
dessert qui a
of them
travaillé
are
sur le
going to
programme
go
BCH.
to each biosphere
Ce
reserve.
sont des verres souvenirs
So
du
these are your
BCHT. C'est un
souvenir of the
jolie
BCHT
initiative,
project. That's a really
et donc
nice
sur lesquels
idea.
on va graver ces fameux mots. Alors je crois
So we're
qu'on va
going to have
laisser
these words
Benjamin,
engraved.
non, va
I
l'accompagner jusqu'à la
think,
gravure.
Benjamin,
Parce
are we
que
going to
je crois
go
qu'on est
with
plus
you
loin et ça
through
va
to
être
the
intéressant de
engraving
voir.
room? It'd be really interesting to see.
Ok.
Here we are.
Voilà, c'est parti. La
Here we
gravure
are.
va débuter là, donc sur ce très,
So the
très beau
engraving
verre en
is
cristal.
about to
On va la
start.
laisser
These are
vivre
real
cette
crystal
gravure, et
glasses,
pendant ce temps-là,
and we're going to
on va conclure le séminaire. Le
leave
temps
them
qu'on est prêt.
to their
Amélie, c'est bon, tu
engraving
restes
while
avec moi
we
en plateau. Et puis on va
conclude
rejoindre
this
en duplex
conference.
aussi, en visio, comme on dit depuis un an
We're
et demi,
going to have,
Adeline Gladieux,
as we're
chef
now
de projet
used to,
BCHT,
a
qui est dans le
virtual
North Devon, et puis également avec nous Sabine
Adeline
Coucou,
joining us
chargée de mission
virtually.
Europe et
Hello,
financement à la communauté
Adeline.
d'agglo de Saint-Omer. Bonjour à toutes les deux.
And
Merci
we've got
d'être avec nous.
Sabine from Capso, Saint-Omer.
Bonjour Cécile, bonjour à tous.
Bonjour
Hello,
Sabine.
hello everybody.
Je sais que vous avez suivi avec attention tout ce séminaire. Et puis,
Now, I know you've been carefully following the whole of this seminar. Now, you are actually behind the application for this project, not alone, of course, but you've been following. Here we can see the engraving as we speak. It's beautiful.
Sur le verre, bon bah super, ça va se
On
poursuivre
the glass, that's incredible.
à la fin de notre plateau. Donc,
And it should be finished by the end of our conclusions. So you've been following the BCHT project, Sabine, Adeline as well. What for you have been the most positive parts that have worked the best? What's worked well, of course, has been the cooperation between us. And when I say cooperation, as you said, I've been involved from the outset, and I was just one pair of hands, along with Luc, Maud, who were there at the beginning, and then all the other people who joined us along the journey. So there's been this real joint construction process with everything that's involved in that. So first of all, we had a blueprint of what we wrote in our application, in our project application, to get funding. We had to set out objectives to obtain this funding. It's something that's quite complicated because at the beginning we didn't have everyone on board yet. And it was a really quite a long journey, and on the way sometimes the itinerary can change to reach your destination. So when you start out, you think you know where you're going, but sometimes you need to take a detour or revise your route depending on what comes up along the way. What worked well was that we learned together. We learned to accept each other, to set aside some of our initial ideas, and we learned to explain ourselves better. and to comply with the program's requirements. So there were a lot of constraints. I kind of work behind the scenes on the management side of things, but I've always had to apply the project's conditions. And I'm still learning things about the project today, even though I know it off by heart. So it's a bit like the glass that's being engraved. It's seeing the results of what we originally designed. It's a bit like writing a scenario and then going to watch the film. So with these, and what's interesting is that the 4 biosphere reserves are very different, were and still are very different, and yet we managed to work together, and that's really enriching. Adeline, I'm sure you agree with Sabine about the bonds that have been created.
Effectivement, quand Sabine elle parle qu'on a appris beaucoup de choses des uns des autres, je la rejoins.
We've learned a lot from one another. I completely agree with Sabine here.
Je pense qu'on a aussi beaucoup appris les uns des autres.
We've learned from the other participants, but we've also learned a lot about ourselves, about how we could work on such projects. Do you think, both of you, do you think the project has been visible and understandable for the general public?
Yeah,
I think things are better. To be frank, at the onset, the very name of the project was quite complex, and it's complex for our English-speaking partners, but it's still very hard to apprehend by the general public. So, well, the people would say, okay, well, great, sounds nice, but what is it about exactly? So we had to communicate, to explain, and to make it easier for the people to grasp. For example, master planning doesn't ring any bell. So, and it also encompasses different meanings for different people. So we all had a different idea of what master planning was. So we wouldn't think of the same ideas behind the same term. So we had to work together and adjust this. So this shows how important it is to label things clearly. So at the beginning, the target was not necessarily the general public. It was, the project was more about engaging the local actors and players from the reserve who were supposed to be relaying the information to the public. And with the, obviously, with our communication work package, we've reached the public, but it's the fundamentals of the project was about involving, engaging the eco players and the local businesses and other stakeholders. You know, the organizations that manage the biosphere reserve don't always have skills in or expertise in tourism practices. So we've had to convince them to review the practices so that they could reach the public. So there was a variety of skills, of professions. So at the beginning, we were all among ourselves, biosphere managers, and then we extended the scope of our actions so that everyone could gradually make the values their own. That was what made sense. Well, just one word. We spoke about the achievements and successes, but what were the
alors comme je l'ai mentionné, une des difficultés, c'était de se comprendre et de mettre la même définition derrière le même mot.
First of all, we had to agree on a common definition for each word. The second hurdle was, of course, the COVID pandemic. We were quite significantly impacted by the health crisis. So we're now working hard.
Aussi une autre difficulté.
Yeah,
et
we're close to the wire.
On est financé par Interreg.
And
donc
also,
on a fait énormément de choses
we are funded by Interreg, and a lot has been achieved thanks to Interreg. But we've got to admit that there's quite a lot of paperwork involved because we've got to we need to prove to justify ourselves all through, and that's quite a lot of work. Well, this admin workload, I guess it's typical of European projects, isn't it? Yes.
En réalité,
you're right.
Bon, on trouve pas l'argent sous les sabots d'un cheval.
Well, you can't find money anywhere. Money doesn't grow on trees.
Il faut quand même se rendre compte qu'on était sur un montant global de projet à 4 millions
But we had
on a des partenaires qui avaient un
a
budget
4
entre 200
million
000 euros et 1 million.
project. Some of the partners have 200,000 euro. So this is quite a lot of money. So of course we had to justify ourselves to the matrix somehow, to the European institution. So the people we have to deal with are very much into the technical part of project management. So that's why we also had to deliver tools to facilitate this machinery, these administrative aspects. Yes, we had a lot of work to do, but once you know it, once you've learned the technique, you can transfer it onto other projects. So it's no waste of time, and it would be a pity to stop at this point. It's just like when you learn a language, you need to use it, to practice it. So now we have the fundamentals, we have the basics. We have learned a lot, and we would like to move on. Well, of course, because of Brexit, BCHT cannot be continued as it is now. So there are quite a few projects in waiting. So what does the future hold? How can we maintain some forms of cooperation in spite of Brexit? Well, I think we need to we need to have a common reflection on what the future can be. We need to share, think global, and act local. So we are now experiencing a transition period, and there's now a kind of gap in between both stages. So the question is, what do we want to do, and how do we want to go on with our own knowledge? So all four participants in the project are biosphere reserves. So there's a lot we can do together in the future. So maybe the project will be more focused on man and biosphere topics, but each biosphere reserve will have to find sponsors and funding.
La réalisation des opérations, déjà, je pense que les opérations qui sont initiées dans le cadre du projet BCHT, elles seront terminées pour la fin de l'année.
Our actions as part of the BCHT project will be achieved by the end of the civil year. But if we want to go further, we need to have a common reflection. There are topics that we want to share. That are topics that might be more relevant for some of us, and we'll have to find financial support and other means by ourselves now. So I guess a lot of energy will be needed, a lot of flexibility and agility. Yes, definitely.
Comme disait Sabine, on a une liste de sujets potentiels sur lesquels on pourrait
we have a list of topics that we can work on in the future. We have the ideas, we have the knowledge, but how are we going to implement this together? It's all pending right now.
Pour être tout à fait honnête avec vous,
to be honest, sorry.
Pour être tout à fait honnête avec vous, ce qui nous pose le plus de questions, c'est le fait de pouvoir garder toutes ces personnes qui ont acquis des compétences
well,
et qui sont capables
one of our main concerns is to keep the people because they have gained so many skills, so valuable knowledge. So that's what makes us worried today. How can we keep the teams and the skills and go on working with them? Well, yes, we've mentioned what about money, but what about human resources as well? Because there's been a lot of human effort put into the project. So as you can now see the engraved wine glass on screen and the keywords that have been engraved on it. Benjamin, you should be a TV host. You're just perfect. So what were your favorite words?
Coopération et
I
j'avais
have
également diversité
chosen nature, cooperation, and diversity, because I think we've devised very different activities and things, and so I think diversity was a good word. Nature, yeah.
Oui, c'est parfait.
Are you happy with the words? Yes, I am. Sabine,
alors moi,
what about your words?
Biodiversité.
My word was biodiversity. So that's what we're working on in the biosphere reserves. But I also wanted to refer to our own diversity as human beings. You know, the connection between man and nature, between man and the environment. I wanted to reflect upon this idea of biodiversity. That might sound a bit like, you know, a philosophy paper, but anyway, I also wanted to use the word ecosystem, ecology, but also eco for economics. And when you start a project, you've got to know how to feed the project, how to find financial support. And so the people that have participated in this seminar, if they want to join up for other projects, for further adventures, contact us.
Une dernière chose
And
que je voulais
one
ajouter
last
aussi, c'est que
thing I'd like to mention,
quoi qu'il en soit de l'avenir, pour
whatever
retrouver
the
des
future
ressources,
holds,
ce qui est important, c'est d'avoir eu la volonté politique
what
sur chacun
really
de nos territoires
matters
de continuer
is that
d'avancer.
each
On parle tourisme,
territory
on parle
shows
nature,
a
on
political
parle
determination
travail de l'humain.
to
Et ça, c'est
go on
trois aspects qui
working
sont
on
absolument non
these
délocalisables
aspects,
et qui vont
nature,
faire la
human,
richesse d'un territoire et sa capacité à
and
se développer pour
yeah,
l'avenir. Donc voilà,
this
j'ai un
is
discours un peu
critical
politique sur la
for the
fin, je suis désolée, je suis pas
future.
politique du tout.
I'm not a
Mais je pense
political
que je fais un
person
petit
at
peu
all,
écho à
but
ce
I
que vous avez
think
dit
I
aussi,
have
puis
to
voir
mention
en approche,
the fact that
en ouverture, sur le fait qu'effectivement,
there has to be
quand on
a
veut, on peut.
political commitment, because when there's a will, there's a way.
Parce que je pense qu'effectivement,
Thanks
la
a lot.
décision
I think
politique
that was
va compter
indeed
pour beaucoup et on vous souhaite
essential
à tous
to
qu'elle soit
refer, to
dans le bon
mention
sens, cette décision politique.
political
Vous l'avez compris, on arrive à la fin de ce
decision-making
séminaire final du
processes.
BCHT.
Well,
Un énorme merci à tous les participants, intervenants qui sont venus nous présenter leur travail, mais aussi à tous ceux qui étaient derrière leur écran d'ordinateur.
Coming to the end of this final conference, I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been involved. It's difficult, it's a virtual event, but we've done as much as we can to create really a bond here and interaction. So I really hope that's worked. We're now going to go on to the study tour of the Mario do Marois. It's organized by Pas-de-Calais Tourisme. So click on the link that's going to come up on your screen soon to join in that. I really encourage you to do that. In a few minutes, you're going to receive a satisfaction survey. It's really important, so please take time to fill that in. Maud and Anaïs, who are here with me right to the end, with so much energy and efficiency. Thank you so much that you've put so much work into this seminar, so well done, and it's nice to have you here. You've been wonderful. So thank you, girls. And now a big thanks to the technical team behind the scenes. They've done really well. And I was really delighted to discover your regions. There will be a replay, so you'll be able to go back and watch any bits that you might have missed or might want to see again. It'll be available on the BCHT website. So I don't think I've forgotten anything. It's been a real pleasure. So take care and all the best to the Biosphere Reserves. Goodbye.